I never thought I'd be the guy posting this kind of thing, but here we are. My name's Jake, and I married this woman, Emily, about 2 years ago. We had a pretty good run overall, at least I thought so. She's gorgeous, confident, and knows exactly what to say to make me feel like I was the luckiest guy alive. But looking back, I can see now that there were signs I ignored, little things that, in hindsight, should have tipped me off sooner. It started with little weirdness, texts that she'd quickly hide from me, her getting a little too defensive when I asked where she was or who she was with. Nothing blatant, just enough to make me suspicious. I remember one night, I was supposed to pick her up after work and she was a little late. When she finally got in the car, she was acting nervous, avoiding eye contact, and kept saying she was tired from a long day. That's not her usual vibe. She's always confident, in control, a little bitchy even about things she doesn't care about. But that night, she was jittery, like she had something to hide. Then came the wedding rehearsal. Dinner. We'd been planning this for months, excited about getting married, and I was feeling pretty good about us. Our friends, family, all there. Emily was her usual self, high maintenance, bossy, throwing around her bitchy comments, acting like she was the queen of everything. But I noticed something off. She kept sneaking glances at this guy, Jason, my best man. Every time she thought I wasn't looking, she'd give him a quick, secretive smile or a wink. I caught her stealing kisses with him in the shadows once. It was so quick, I wasn't even sure if I'd seen it right, but I felt it in my gut. The weirdest part, the look Jason gave me when I finally caught him staring at her. It was like he was proud, like he was showing off that he had her. That look still haunts me. It's burned into my brain. I remember that moment clearly, her whispering something in his ear, both of them giggling like they shared some secret I was no longer a part of. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. Not just a flirt, but something bigger, something deadly. That night I stayed awake, replaying everything, her secret messages, the stolen kisses, the way she'd suddenly become so distant and cold since the wedding. She'd always been kind of bitchy, but now she was outright nasty. When I asked her about Jason, she flipped out, called me paranoid, said I was imagining things. She lied, of course. She always lied. She told me she was just close to him because they'd known each other for years and that I was just being insecure. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes, the way she avoided mine when I pressed her, the way she'd mysteriously disappear after work, her phone never leaving her side. I felt betrayed, angry, and crushed all at once. I'd given her everything, my time, my trust, my love, and she was out there with my best man, lying right to my face. That's when I started piecing things together, messages, her secret nights, her cold attitude towards me all of a sudden. It was all a lie, and I was just too blind to see it. The betrayal isn't just about the sex. It's the lies, the sneaking around, the way she used to call me stupid when I got suspicious. Now I realize that was just her way of keeping me from finding out the truth. What really stung was how she acted afterward, like nothing had happened, like she was the victim. That bitchy side of her seemed to double down. She'd call me insecure, cling to her phone, and pretend she was the innocent wife. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw the evidence, and I knew I had to confront her. I had to find out if I was just overreacting or if everything I suspected was real. I waited for the right moment, then confronted her a few days later in the middle of the night when she was supposed to be asleep. That's when she started her lies, denying everything, calling me paranoid, saying I was crazy, accusing me of snooping. She had her usual bitchy attitude, throwing her words around like knives, trying to make me feel like I was overreacting. It was the kind of fight that cuts deep, especially when you realize the person you trusted the most has been screwing around behind your back. The hardest part, watching her lie and knowing she's just trying to manipulate her way out of it. But I wasn't going to let her. I saw through her bullshit. Deep down, I knew this was over. The trust was shattered and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. I just wanted to go to bed and forget the whole nightmare, but I knew I'd be waking up to a new reality, one where everything I thought I knew was a lie. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I was in a fog for days. The pain and anger just kept building inside me. I couldn't eat right, couldn't sleep, and every time I saw her bitchy little smirk or heard her dismissive tone, It made my stomach turn. I kept replaying everything, trying to figure out how I had missed all the signs, how I'd gone so blind. I was furious at her, but more than that, I was heartbroken. I'd trusted her with my life, my future, and she'd been out there lying, cheating, sneaking around with Jason, of all people. The guy I considered my best friend, the guy I'd trusted to stand by me. The betrayal cut so deep because I'd always thought Emily was the strong one, the confident one who knew what she wanted. Turns out she's just a bitchy liar who throws tantrums when she doesn't get her way. At first, I thought about confronting Jason, but I knew that wouldn't really solve anything. What I really wanted was to understand why she did it. Why her? Why Jason? And why the hell did she think she could get away with it? I started spying on her, just little things at first. I'd check her phone when she wasn't looking, go through her social media. It wasn't long before I found more evidence, secret messages, flirty comments on her posts, even some pictures she'd taken with Jason. That's when I really knew I'd been right all along. The lies weren't just innocent flirting, they were full-blown affairs. No doubt in my mind anymore. She'd been cheating on me for months, probably since before we even got engaged. That realization hit me like a freight train. I felt sick thinking about all the times I'd trusted her when she was secretly with him. But what really pushed me over the edge was the night I decided to lay everything out on the table. I'd had enough of her lying and gaslighting me. I remember sitting in the living room, staring at her while she sipped her wine, that bitchy smirk still plastered on her face. I told her I knew everything. All the messages, the secret meetings, the stolen kisses. Her face twisted into this look of pure venom, like she was surprised I finally caught her, even though I'd been suspicious for so long. She started spinning her usual web of lies. "It's just sex," she said. "It didn't mean anything, and of course, you're paranoid." She rolled her eyes and tried to paint herself as the victim, saying I was overreacting, that I was crazy for even bringing it up. But I wasn't buying any of it. I knew the truth. She was a manipulative bitch, and Jason was just the latest piece of that puzzle. That night, I felt a mix of rage and despair. I'd never felt so betrayed in my entire life. I kept asking myself how I didn't see this coming, how I let her get away with it for so long. I'd always thought I was a good husband, but I'd been so blind to her real nature. I felt like a fool, but I also knew I couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was okay. I needed to plan my next move carefully because I knew she'd try to spin her web even tighter to keep me from seeing the truth. The thing about Emily is that she's excellent at lying. She's what you'd call a master manipulator, always acting like she's the victim, never taking responsibility for anything. That's part of why this hurts so bad. I never saw her as the type to cheat, but I guess I was the idiot who thought her bitchy attitude was just her personality, not a sign of something rotten underneath. She's always been a bitch about everything, demanding, controlling, and dismissive. But the cheating, that was a new level I never expected. Now I was stuck in this horrible limbo, angry, broken, questioning everything. I felt like I was losing my mind. The trust was gone, shredded into pieces, and I had no idea if I could ever put it back together. I've always believed in honesty, loyalty, the kind of love that's supposed to last forever. But she shattered everything with one lie, one betrayal. I kept telling myself I deserved better, that I'd eventually get out of this mess. But right now, all I wanted was to make her pay, to make her see what she'd done. And that's when I started thinking about revenge, not some petty, childish revenge, but something that would make her regret every lie, every stolen moment, every look she gave Jason behind my back. I didn't want her to walk away thinking she'd gotten away with it. I wanted her to feel the pain I was feeling, crippling, raw, and real. I knew I had to be careful, though. I needed a plan, not just a sudden burst of rage. I had to outsmart her, to make her realize she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. That's when I started gathering everything. Her secret messages, her phone records, even some of her own words that betrayed her. I was going to make her regret everything, and I was going to do it in a way she'd never see coming. Once I had all the evidence, I knew I couldn't just blow up and confront her again without a plan. Emily is slippery. She's the kind of woman who can talk her way out of anything, twist words, and make you doubt your own sanity. I Had to be smart. I spent the next couple of days just watching her, waiting for the right moment. I didn't want to do anything impulsive. I needed her to slip up again to give me a clear shot. During this time, she continued her bitchy, dismissive attitude as if I was the crazy one. She'd blow off my concerns, call me paranoid, and sneer when I brought up her late nights or her secret phone calls. She was so confident, so sure she could keep everything hidden. That confidence was her weakness, I realized. I could sense she thought she was untouchable, that she had the upper hand, but I knew better. I'd caught her in too many lies, seen too many signs. One night, I finally decided to check her phone again when she was out of the house. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, but I was desperate. I found more messages, flirty, intimate, downright disgusting. Texts where she called Jason the best sex she ever had, and he responded with "can't wait to see you again." My stomach dropped. That's when I realized this wasn't just a fling, it was something serious, something they both were actively hiding. I felt sick but also strangely relieved. I finally had the proof I needed. The next step was crucial. I didn't want to just confront her and have her deny everything again. I needed to catch her in the act, or at least make it so uncomfortable for her that she'd have no choice but to admit or leave. I started planning my move. I set up a little hidden camera in the bedroom where I knew they'd meet, or where she'd be vulnerable. I wanted her to believe she was still in control, but I was going to turn the tables. I also reached out to a private investigator I found online, someone discreet, professional. I paid him to follow her, to get photos, videos, anything that would show her with Jason in the act. Waiting was the hardest part. Every day felt like a countdown to disaster. I'd catch her in these little lies, her defensiveness growing more ridiculous by the hour. She'd call me insecure, cling to her phone like it was her lifeline, and accuse me of controlling her. But I knew better. I knew her too well now. She thought she was clever, but I had her number. I was just biding my time until I had enough evidence to end this once and for all. And then it happened. The night I'd been waiting for. I got a call from the investigator. He'd followed her to a hotel, and they'd caught her sneaking into a room with Jason. The photos were clear. Her in bed with him, clothes half off, kissing like they were the only two people in the world. I looked at those pictures and felt a strange mixture of relief and devastation. Relief because I finally saw the truth with my own eyes. Devastation because I knew this was over, that my wife had been lying to me for months, possibly longer. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. I felt numb, like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. All those moments I'd doubted myself, all the times I'd felt like I was going crazy, turns out I was right all along. She was with Jason. She'd been sneaking around in secret, lying, cheating, and trying to keep her little affair hidden. The person I thought I knew was a lie. She was just a manipulative, bitchy woman who played her cards close to her chest and thought she could get away with anything. That night I made a decision. I knew I couldn't stay with her, not after everything. This betrayal was too deep, too painful. I decided I'd confront her one last time, but this time I'd do it with everything I had: proof, evidence, the truth. I wanted her to see the damage she'd done, to understand what she'd lost. It was never just about the sex, it was about trust, loyalty, respect. And she had thrown all of that out the window with her lies and her affair with Jason. So I waited until she came home, calm and collected, and then I dropped the bomb. I showed her the photos, the messages, everything. Her face twisted in anger and disbelief. She tried to deny it at first, but I held up the evidence and told her I knew the truth. Her bitchy attitude turned to pure rage. She started screaming, calling me crazy, saying I was stalking her, that I was paranoid. But I didn't back down. I knew she was caught, and I wanted her to admit it, wanted her to face what she'd become. After I laid everything out on the table, her face turned beet red with rage and embarrassment. She clenched her fists, her eyes flashing with fury, and spat out every excuse she could muster. "It's just sex," she said, voice trembling with rage. "It meant nothing. You're overreacting. You're just insecure." She threw her head back and laughed bitterly, trying to dismiss everything as some kind of joke. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I had the proof, the undeniable evidence of her betrayal, and it was clear she knew she'd been caught. Her reaction was typical Emily, bitchy, manipulative, playing the victim to try and save her skin. She started crying, but not because she was sorry. It was more like she was furious that I finally found out. She kept insisting she hadn't meant to hurt me, that Jason was just a fling, just sex, and that I was crazy for thinking there was more to it. She kept insisting she loved me, but her tears seemed fake, rehearsed, like she was just trying to get me to feel sorry for her. That's when I realized her entire attitude was a facade. She was used to lying, used to manipulating people, and now she was desperately trying to spin her way out of it. I could feel my anger boiling over. I was furious at her, but I felt a strange kind of pain, too. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered how I'd ever trust her again. For a moment I questioned everything. The years we'd spent together, the future I'd imagined, the love I thought we shared. It was all just a lie, a house of cards ready to fall. I looked at her, still crying, still trying to make me feel guilty, and suddenly I realized that whatever I'd been hoping for, some sort of reconciliation and explanation, I wasn't interested anymore. I wanted her out of my life, but she wasn't ready to go quietly. She started screaming, calling me all kinds of names: jealous, insecure, pathetic. She told me I was just a fool for trusting her, that she'd never loved me, just played me for a fool. She told me her sex with Jason was just a quick thing, nothing serious, and that I was so insecure I couldn't even handle her having a normal life. She threw everything she had to try and turned the tables, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her, but I saw right through her. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, they all fell flat now. I told her to pack her things and leave. I wasn't going to stand there and listen to her spin her lies anymore. I felt numb, part angry, part exhausted, part broken. I watched her grab some of her clothes, still screaming and crying, but it felt like I was watching someone else, like I was in some bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I knew this wasn't just about her cheating. I had lost the person I thought I knew. The woman I married, the woman I loved, she was gone, replaced by a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd do anything to save herself. Once she was gone, I sat alone in the house, staring at the empty space where she'd once stood. The silence was deafening. I felt a strange mixture of relief and despair. Relief that I finally saw the truth, that I didn't have to live in her web of lies anymore. But despair because I'd lost my wife, someone I'd trusted, someone I'd loved. The pain was raw, overwhelming. I kept thinking about all the moments I'd ignored, all the times I'd trusted her word when I should have seen what she was hiding. That night, I stayed up for hours just staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I kept asking myself, how did I get here? How did I not see it sooner? But deep down, I knew the answer. I'd been blinded by love, by her bitchy charm, by the way she'd always made me feel like I was lucky just to be with her. Now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a manipulator, a woman who thought she was above everything, even love itself. In that moment, I made a choice. I decided I'd cut her out of my life completely. No contact, no second chances. I was done feeling like a fool. It was going to hurt badly, but I knew I'd survive. I'd rebuild myself piece by piece. But I'd never forget how she made me feel, how she betrayed everything we ever had. And I'd definitely never trust her again. That's the cruel part. Knowing someone you loved could turn out to be the biggest liar you've ever known. It's a kind of pain that stays with you, a scar that never really heals. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work trying to drown out the noise in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her sneering smile, her dismissive attitude. I'd catch myself staring at the walls, replaying everything, trying to find some kind of meaning, some reason she'd done this to me. But there was no reason, no justification. Just a selfish, bitchy woman who thought she could cheat and lie her way out of anything. And Jason, God, I never thought someone I considered my best man would turn against me like that. I kept thinking about the wedding rehearsal. That night, her secret message to Jason, the stolen kisses during the toast, the way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It all came rushing back. The secret messages, the late nights, her dismissive attitude when I asked about Jason. Deep down, I knew I should have seen it sooner, but I was too caught up in the idea of us, that perfect future I'd envisioned. I'd been such an idiot. I remember how furious I was when I found the photos from the investigator, Seeing her in bed with Jason, their bodies tangled up like they didn't care who was watching. That image haunted me for days. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the fact that she'd been so reckless, so careless about my feelings. She played me like a fool, and I'd let her, probably because I loved her too much, or maybe because I was just too damn blind to see what was right in front of me. I knew I needed to get out of there to get away from her lies and her bitchy attitude, so I started packing my stuff quietly. I didn't want her to know I was planning anything. I wanted her to leave on her own, to realize she'd burned every bridge. I lined up a place to stay, an apartment not too far from our house, just enough distance to breathe again. I didn't want to confront her again, not yet. I needed some space to think, to process everything. But I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. I knew that once she left, she'd try to manipulate her way back, maybe call me a fool, or worse, try to make me feel guilty for catching her. That bitchy side of her was always good at turning the tables, so I decided to set a trap. I left some of her things behind, knowing she'd come back for them. I wanted her to walk into the house, think she still had some control, and then I'd surprise her. I wanted to see how far she'd go, how much she'd lie to cover her ass. She did come back, of course. The moment she stepped inside, her face twisted with anger and contempt. She looked around like she owned the place, then saw her stuff still waiting for her. That's when her bitchiness really came out. She started screaming, calling me every name in the book, trying to make me feel guilty for abandoning her. But I just stood there calm, collected. I'd had enough of her bullshit. I finally told her to pack her shit and get out for good. I told her that I wasn't going to be played anymore, that I knew what she'd done, and I was done with her lies. She cussed, she yelled, she threw her perfect bitchy tantrum, her face blotched with anger and tears. But deep down, I could see she was losing control. I'd finally caught her in her web, and she knew it. That stupid, smug look she always had was gone. Now she looked scared, like she realized I wasn't going to take her bullshit anymore. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, and I sat down on the couch, exhausted and hollow. The house suddenly felt empty, colder than ever. That night I slept fitfully. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her sneering, bitchy expression, her lies, her betrayal. It was a long, painful process, but I kept telling myself that I was finally free. Free from her manipulative games, free from the lies, the cheating. I had lost my wife, yes, but I'd gained my sanity back. The trust was shattered, but I knew I had to rebuild. I had to find a way to move on, even if it hurt like hell. In those dark moments, I realized something: how important honesty, loyalty, and respect really are. I'd loved her, thought I knew her, but I was wrong. The woman I married turned out to be just a facade, pretty on the outside, rotten inside. I learned that sometimes you have to face the brutal truth head-on, even when it's ugly. I've been a fool to ignore all the signs, but now I was finally waking up. It's a terrible lesson, but one I'll carry with me. Never ignore the red flags, and never settle for someone who lies and cheats. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, whether you want it to or not. The days turned into weeks, and slowly the pain began to dull, though the scars remained. I started piecing my life back together, piece by piece. I threw myself into work, into friends, anything that kept my mind busy. The house felt colder, emptier without her bitchy attitude and her manipulative presence. I no longer had to second-guess every word she said, every glance she gave Jason, every lie she spun. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of relief, even if the wound was still fresh. What surprised me most was how liberating it was to finally accept that I was better off without her. I had trusted her completely, and she had torn that trust to shreds with her lies and her betrayal. It was a brutal lesson in human nature, how some people can appear perfect on the outside but hide a rotten core inside. I learned that trusting blindly is a mistake, and that sometimes the biggest act of love you can give yourself is walking away from someone who doesn't deserve it. Over time, I realized I had to let go of the anger. Holding on to it only made me bitter, kept me tethered to a past I couldn't change. I started focusing on myself, my health, my career, my future. I didn't want to be the guy who let a manipulative, bitchy wife ruin everything. I wanted to be stronger, wiser, and I was. The pain was still there, lurking in the background, but I refused to let it define me. Looking back, I don't regret the choices I made. I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that some things are just out of your control. What matters now is that I finally faced the truth, no matter how ugly it was. I learned a lot about myself during this nightmare, about my limits, my resilience, and the importance of borders in relationships. I realized that loyalty isn't just about fidelity. It's about respect, honesty, and the effort both people put into making it work. Now I'm moving forward. I've started dating again, cautiously, but with a new understanding of what I want and need. I don't need a woman who's bitchy and manipulative, who lies and cheats. I want honesty, loyalty, someone who values me and doesn't play games. That's the only way I'll ever be able to trust again, by knowing that I don't have to settle for less. This whole experience has been one hell of a wake-up call. For anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, pay attention to the red flags, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one who can truly take care of yourself. And no matter how much it hurts, sometimes the best thing you can do is cut out the poison, even if it feels like your heart is breaking in the process. Because life moves on, and so should you.